August of 2005, I'm at the University of New Orleans. It's start of my second fall with the program, so we had a new class of 22 recruits trying to rebuild a once proud program that had been struggling the years previous to that. And school started on a Monday, and the next Monday is when Hurricane Katrina hit. So 5 days into the semester, had to meet with the team and talk about a hurricane plan, an evacuation plan of where to go. And we had kids from California, Boston, Chicago, places that have zero experience with hurricanes. So having them come up with a plan. So we were sending kids to Shreveport, so we just had to have kind of an action plan of where everybody was going to be. Sure enough, the storm was beelining right for New Orleans, and it was kind of gaining some strength, much like Florence did. Kind of, just see that big kind of ball of mess out in the ocean that is headed right for you. So all the models had it coming to New Orleans. So we sent the guys out of town. 24 hours after landfall, we thought we were going to be okay. I mean, really, for New Orleans didn't even get a whole lot of rain. A lot of people don't realize that with Hurricane Katrina, it wasn't the wind or the rain that did the damage. It was when the levee broke. And then the next day, that next Tuesday, is when the levee broke, and obviously it was a different ballgame. So the one levee was about 1.5 miles from campus and about 3 blocks from our house. And so personally, we had 8 feet of water in our house, but campus was actually right on the lake, so it was a little bit on high ground, but campus was basically an island. They immediately basically canceled classes for the semester, and it was a trying time trying to figure out what we were going to do. So at that point, we're just trying to keep our team together. So at that point, my kids went up to Michigan and moved in with my in-laws, and we're living up there. I told my wife at the time to get Chase enrolled in kindergarten and move in with your parents, and then I'll be up there as soon as I can get there, as soon as I figure out what's going on with the team. From there, I just started calling schools and trying to figure out where we could bring the team and keep the group together. We were told by the AD that we're basically on our own. Find what you can find and figure it out. So had a deal worked out with Central Florida. The only problem with Central Florida was they didn't have housing for us. We would have had to kind of live out of a hotel or find some temporary housing. So that wasn't ideal. But New Mexico State, one of the last calls I made to Rocky Ward at New Mexico State, I told him what we were trying to do. He said, "Let me call you back in 2 hours." He calls me back in 2 hours and says, "When can you get here?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, met with my president, and we were gonna renovate a dorm that we're gonna open up for you guys. You guys can live there in the dorm, and free tuition and free housing. The only thing you're gonna have to pay for is food and books." So anyway, I got the call from Rocky on a Wednesday, and that next Saturday, which is about little less than 2 weeks after the storm, we flew the team out to New Mexico. And a good friend of mine had a private plane, and he picked up half the team in Baton Rouge, and the other half of the team we flew in commercially from wherever they were. So we picked up all the Louisiana kids in Baton Rouge, and everyone else we flew commercially into Las Cruces, and we were there by noon on Saturday. The Red Cross had a barbecue for our guys when we landed. They had hamburgers and hot dogs. The Red Cross really stepped up big to help our program and give our guys, some of the essentials they needed, but also to feed our guys and just, let them know that they were cared for as much as anything, that they weren't alone in this. So, all the people that stepped up, I can't even go, between New Mexico State and the Red Cross and all the Puma gave our team all free new cleats, and Nike stepped up and gave us some gear. There were Major League Baseball teams sending us pants and balls and bats. Wilson sent us gloves. All the different vendors stepped up to help our teams, and it was just an incredible time. And at times like that, you kind of see the worst of people is what you see on TV. You see the looting and the shootings and the violence in New Orleans that followed the storm, but what you don't see is the best in people, and that's all those people that went out of their way and stepped up to help our club, and that's what we experienced. So coming out of the hurricane, we had, again, it was devastating for the city, but to watch the city kind of be resilient and bind together and take pride in rebuilding that city, was an amazing kind of thing to be part of. And when we got to New Mexico State, the academic coordinator handed our guys their schedules, and they started class on Monday. and the baseball coach paired them up with a guy on the team that was kind of a mentor that helped them, show them where his classes were, and was available if they had any questions or needed to figure out how to get to the cafeteria. When we came back to New Orleans, campus still wasn't ready, so we had to go to South Alabama for about a month and live in a hotel, and we ate at the K&W cafeteria every day, and I haven't eaten one since. But I love the K&W, but when you eat there like 14 days in a row, it's tough. But at any rate, we practiced there for about a month, and then could finally get back onto campus and get back to some semblance. We didn't have lights, and things were pretty bad around us. It was hard to get doctors and dentist appointments. It was grocery stores were still kind of sparse at best, if open at all. So finding places to eat and things like that, and just normal services that you take for granted were difficult. Again, we lived through that, and that's why my heart goes out to all the folks down there in the eastern part of the state that took it so hard and have lost so much. And I know Wake Forest stepped up big and opened their doors not only at the Coliseum but on campus to house people and feed people. And I know the Red Cross here is doing amazing things to help and pitch in where they can. So anything that our team can do or I can do to help repay the debt, the gratitude that we got after the hurricane. It was a challenging time. I know the folks in the eastern part of the state are going through it now and about to go through it. It takes a long time to recover from something like this, but when you've got folks like the Red Cross and Wake Forest and all the millions of people that have reached out to that part of the country to help, it's one of the beautiful things about our country. I think it separates us from the rest of the world, is just that compassion and stepping up in times of need. And again, the first and foremost, your heart just goes out to the people that are about to get hit. You just pray for them and not only their physical safety, but again, little things that you take for granted, like where are my kids going to go to school, or is my doctor going to be here when I get back for somebody who's elderly or needs help? So little things like that we all take for granted. Yeah, so the downstairs, we had 2 floors. The downstairs was a total loss. I mean, there was mold. We had, like I said, about 8 feet of water in the house. So everything on the first floor, both kids' bedrooms, the garage, the family room, living room, dining room, kitchen, all that was a total nothing salvageable. Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, the government catches a lot of flack over how they handle these things, but the government gives, FEMA gives these people homes and makes the area safe. You know what I mean? They sent in the National Guard, and the National Guard was guarding certain sections of town and making sure the right people were there that needed to be there. So, again, things like that you would never imagine that you'd have to deal with. Habitat for Humanity was another one. They were sending down trucks worth of people, and churches from all over the country were sending groups of people to start rebuilding, right away. I mean, it was just amazing to see. And the Red Cross is a perfect example. I just can't count the number of ways they impacted our team. Little things like, for Thanksgiving vacation, helping our kids fly home for Thanksgiving. Oh, I think it's just awesome. I mean, and that's what Wake is, pro humanitate. They live that every day at Wake Forest, from President Hatch on down to Ron Wellman and throughout our campus. It's for others. And so Wake, I had no doubt in my mind that Wake would step to the plate and be at the forefront of that charge. And I'm glad they were. I knew they would be, but it was good to see that they did that and followed through on their belief system. Well, I think that goes back to your upbringing, right? I come from a town, Johnstown, Pennsylvania, a little coal mine, steel mill town, and that's a town with, oftentimes we have the highest unemployment in the state, but we have the lowest, homeless rate in the state, because you have family and that's just how you're brought up there. If you have the ability to help somebody, that's what you do for family. And, when I was in Washington, D.C., and we went through 9/11 and the D.C. sniper, and then New Orleans and Hurricane Katrina, and then the story here, I mean, it's just what you do. And I think that's what anybody in my shoes would do.